Hello and welcome to this week's After Maths episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths, with me, Jon Cripwell.
And me, Becky Brown.
How are you, Becky?
I'm okay, thank you, Jon. Yeah, I'm good, all good for me. How are you? What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, no, all good. I had the pleasure of speaking to this week's interview guests earlier this week. We for once that was recorded on Monday and went out on Tuesday, so that was exciting. And then I've been doing some work behind the scenes on some exciting new projects at Twinkle that I can't talk about yet, but they are new and exciting, and looking forward to sharing some more of that soon. So what are we talking about this week, Becky, on the Aftermaths episode?
Well, unless you've been under a rock for the last few weeks, you will no doubt be aware there's a little show called The Traitors, which came back to our screens with a celebrity version last week. So we thought it might be fun to take a look at the numbers and the maths behind that show.
And I know, Becky, that you haven't actually managed to watch the Celebrity Traitors yet, have you?
I haven't. I've got it ready to watch, but you have promised me there won't be any spoilers.
I have, but you can rest assured, if you're listening to this, there will be no major spoilers about the celebrity version of the show, but hopefully just a little bit of a fun look at the numbers and the maths that go into it.
Looking forward to it. We'll also discuss the key takeaways from this week's interview episode with Dr. Kirsten Fenton and Holly Drummond on maths journaling and how it can transform classroom culture by making thinking visible.
Absolutely. And just a quick reminder at this point, you can get in touch with the show at any point by emailing primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk, it's Twinkle without an E, or leaving us a comment or direct message on pretty much any of the social media platforms. Right, shall we start with the Traitors then, Becky?
Let's get into it, Jon.
So I absolutely loved doing the research on this. I only got into the Traitors in the last series 3, which came out earlier this year, I think, and then went back and watched series 2 as well after that. So I really got into it. If you are not familiar with the show, it's on the BBC, and essentially, I mean, if you're not familiar with the show, where have you been? But essentially, a group of strangers get put into a house up in Scotland, a big sort of country manor castle in Scotland, and three of them are chosen to be traitors, and they have to act secretly to bump off, basically, one a night, murder one of the faithful, who are the rest of the contestants in the show, until at the end there's an end game section where the remaining players, there's always at least one traitor left in that remaining sort of group of players. If the faithful can eliminate them, then the faithful get to share the prize money, which can be up to £120,000. If there's a traitor left, though, the faithful get nothing, and the traitor, or if there's two traitors, share all of the money. So that's what it's all about. But there's a surprising amount of maths and numbers involved in it, and every time I've been watching it, I've been thinking about it a little bit. So I thought it might be fun to delve into that a little bit this morning. Becky, would you rather be a traitor or a faithful, do you think?
Well, I don't think I'd be very good at either, for different reasons. I think.
But Becky, you're an actor. You know,
Yes.
you're very good at this stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm very gullible, so I think if I was a faithful, I just would find it really hard to believe that anybody was a traitor if they were telling me otherwise. So, and I think it would be fun to be a traitor. I think that would be the most fun to play, but I don't know that I'd be particularly good at it. I don't like telling lies. I mean, you kind of have to, don't you? It's part of the game. But
I mean, that is
I don't
part
know.
of the game. Yeah, you'd be a really rubbish and short-lived traitor, I think, if you just told the truth the whole time.
It's me.
Are you a traitor? Yes, I am.
How about you, Jon? Which would you rather be?
Oh, absolutely, 100% a traitor for reasons that I will go into in a moment. Not just
Okay.
because I am ruthless and want to know everything, but there are good reasons to be a traitor in this game, essentially. So let's get into it a little bit, shall we? So as I mentioned before, the game normally starts with between sort of 19 and 22 contestants. I think in this case, there's 19 celebrities in the celebrity version. I think it's going to be a slightly shorter version because obviously they're celebrities, very busy people that they need to go off and do their celebrity things. So there's 19 people, still 3 traitors. So right from the start, the faithful are outnumbering the traitors usually by about 7-1, slightly less in this version, but generally about 7-1. But of course, the faithful don't know who is the traitor. So in statistic terms, we'd call that a signal to noise problem. There's lots of information, but very little of it is reliable. There's not a lot of concrete data to go on. And obviously, we're talking about this from a maths point of view. You do have to take the psychology of it into account as well, don't you?
Yeah.
But we're going to worry more about the maths side, okay? For me, the first thing that stood out to me, looking at this from if I wanted to win it, as a faithful, at each round, 2 players go. Okay, 2 players go each round, each day, because there's the round table where somebody gets voted off because the they've been identified as a potential traitor and they get voted off. And each night, usually somebody gets murdered or recruited to be a traitor. But generally, it's sort of 2 people a day go. 1 murdered, 1 banished. So the population drops quite quickly. So at the start of the game, given that you've got that ratio of sort of 7-1-ish, it's quite hard to find a traitor and get rid of them. So the chances of being banished or killed as a faithful are much higher if you are a faithful than if you're a traitor. As a traitor, there's only one way to go, really, to be banished, to be found out and banished. And even then, you're one of 3. So the chances are fairly small, actually, particularly at the start, that you're going to be found out and banished. And you know that you're not going to be murdered. So you can sleep safely in your bed every night and not worry about things too much, provided you don't sort of. I don't know if you saw Linda on the last series where, yeah. She might be
Yeah, that's
rivaled, Becky. There's no spoilers, but she might be rivaled as the best, worst
okay.
traitor this series, I have to say, on the early showing.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I think
brilliant.
also as a traitor, you are obviously at risk from the faithful, but you're also a little bit at risk from the other traitors as well, who do know who you are.
You are normally not until towards the end, though. So if you want
Yeah,
to make it
yeah,
through the game towards that end stage, that your best place, because as a faithful, you don't know what's going on at all. As a traitor, you know everything. You know everything about the game, really, apart from the tasks. You know
yes,
everything about the game. And the producers don't often put you in peril as a traitor. Sometimes they give you, a little challenge to do where you've got to go and do something that might reveal you, I suppose. But most of the time, you can just go under the radar and be fairly safe. So by mid-game, the odds of randomly banishing a traitor do improve slightly as the numbers drop, but it still rarely gets over a 25% 25% per vote unless the group has got some really good data or strong reasoning or something. Whereas a faithful needs a near perfect run of correct votes and avoiding sticking themselves above the parapet to be murdered. And so it's mathematically, it's fairly improbable that you will go all the way through the game as a faithful and
okay,
win.
yeah.
And the statistics around the world back this up as well. So there's been about 50 seasons worldwide. The traitors win.
Wow.
Yeah, the traitors win 2/3 of the time, about 2/3 of the time. So there have been 36 traitor wins to about 14, 15 faithful wins. So yeah, there's been a couple of oddities. There was one season where a traitor and a faithful split the prize, apparently. I don't know how that quite happened, but that one of the international shows. And another where every finalist chose to try and steal, I think, as a traitor, and nobody won. But usually it's a traitor that takes the cash at the end. So
Okay.
statistically, in this game, being evil is a good strategy. The odds are in your favour if you're under the cloak.
Right. Okay. So definitely worth being a traitor.
Yeah. So for a faithful, the odds of survival is roughly 1 in 10, which are not great odds, are they?
No.
In the first few days, certainly. And that comes down, I think, to building relationships and being likable, and a little bit lucky as well. Outside of the game itself, a little bit of history for you, Becky. The Traitors actually began in the Netherlands in 2021. And in 4 years, it's been adapted in over 35 countries. Each series is filmed in roughly 2 to 3 weeks and then edited into 12 episodes or so. Castles are the most likely setting around the world, almost everywhere. The US had a bit of an issue with that because not many castles in
No.
the United States. So they use the same one as we use in the UK, which is Airdros Castle in Scotland.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the same place. Okay.
Yeah. A few more numbers for you because we love a number, don't we, on this show?
We do. We do.
The UK version, the first series of the UK version has had now 34 million views, which is fairly impressive for a TV show on BBC iPlayer. This year's non-celebrity version has already got 10 million views just this year. And the first episode of the Celebrity Traitors has had 6.5 million views, which is massive, I think, these
Wow.
days on TV.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big show. Each episode has got a production crew of over 200 people. I mean, cameras everywhere, obviously, trying
Yeah.
to, catch everything that's going on. And the number of people applying to be on the show, Becky, for the first series, 1,500 people applied. For series 3, that went up slightly to 300,000 applications. 300,000 people. I know. That is quite a significant proportion of the population actually applied
Yeah.
to be on the Traitors in series 3. Which
Wow.
is,
Thinking
yeah.
about last episode and our Erdős Bacon number, it feels like we might all be related to somebody who's applied to go on the Traitors
I think that's
with numbers
probably
like that.
very, very likely.
Yes.
So mathematically speaking, you are far better to be a traitor than a faithful if you want to win, if you want to still be there at the end. I know that the way it's produced, it makes it look like there's a lot of jeopardy around the traitors, but actually the traitors win more often than not. And they know what's going on, they have more fun, and they're more likely to survive. Fewer opportunities to get rid of them. So yeah, so that was my little deep dive into the world of the Traitors this week, which I thoroughly enjoyed finding out more about.
Yeah, loved that, John. And I would definitely always go with the maths. So if you ask me the question again, I'd say, yeah, 100% I'll be a traitor.
Yeah, I mean, any sane person, I think, should, if you're interested in winning and not just being likable, because there is that element to it as well, isn't there? That the traitors have to get rid of people. So,
Yeah.
and the celebrity version, there's a moral element to the very first murder, Becky, which I won't tell you any more about than that.
Okay. Have to
But
catch up.
yeah, it's interesting. So there is definitely that side to it as well. But at the end of the day, it's a game, and if you want to, if you want to win the game, take the money, then
Yes. Yeah.
then being a traitor is the stronger suit.
Brilliant. Maybe I'll apply for the next series, John, along with
Yeah,
500,000 other people.
I was going to say, if the numbers keep going up the same way, I think all of us will apply at some point or another. Yeah. So aside from the traitors this week, the other little bit of research I've been working on, although that rabbit hole of the traitors did run quite deep, but the other little bit of research I've been reading was an interesting study from Australia by an academic called Kate Quaid, who I'm actually spoken to since. So I read her paper, and then I've been in touch with her, and I think she's going to come on the show to talk to us about this, actually. But it jumped out at me because it's a paper about porridge words.
Porridge words.
Porridge words. Have you come across the phrase porridge words before?
No, I don't think I have.
No, I haven't either. It's not a phrase that Kate has made up. She's based her work on the work of Edward de Bono, who no relation to. Sorry.
Six Thinking Hats. It was his hats, wasn't it?
Yes,
Wasn't
yeah,
it
yeah,
he
yeah,
thinking
yeah.
hats?
Yes, sorry, I missed the yeah. So yes, he of the Thinking Hats fame.
Yes.
I was going to say no relation to the U2 lead singer Bono,
Yes.
but but so he came up with not just hats. He was also interested in breakfast, and he came up with this phrase porridge words, which he attributed to describe imprecise, vague, or ambiguous language that young children particularly use to try and explain their thinking. Now, he wasn't thinking just about maths. This is where Kate Quaid has taken this and extended it a little bit into mathematical thinking, particularly. But Edward de Bono was more interested just in how children explain their thinking and the value that we place on language, precise or imprecise. So he came up with 4 different types or categories of porridge words. Why porridge? I don't quite know. I think it was just. I don't know. I didn't go. Funnily enough, I
Fair
didn't
enough.
go into that. Yeah, I didn't go into that. If you're out there, you've come across this before. Any big Edward de Bono fans out there, do get in touch and let us know why it's porridge words. I will certainly ask Kate when she comes on the podcast. But he talks about generic porridge words, which are sort of broad labels. So in maths, it could just be something as vague and ambiguous as stuff. You know, stuff. We've got some stuff. I got some stuff to help me. That sort of thing. That would be
Okay.
a generic porridge word. He also had conceptual use words. So in maths, they might be words that are hinting at number, operation, or place value. So um, a word like timesing, which
Okay. Yeah.
we wouldn't model, would we? We wouldn't say, I'm timesing this number. We would say I'm multiplying the number. But we might hear children using that sort of language
Yeah.
incorrectly. The third category was process, so terms describing something that the child is doing or problem solving potentially. And then the fourth category is invisible thinking, which in my notes I've written down moments where reasoning remained implicit or partly articulated. So sort of hinting at a process that they can't yet articulate, I suppose, is
Okay.
the
Yeah.
idea of that. So Kate Quaid has taken these categories and did a little bit of a short study with a small group of children, it has to be said, in a school in Australia to look at what could be gleaned from their understanding of the maths through the language that they were using. And we'll go into a bit more detail, I think, in the episode with her. But what it got me thinking about was we've talked a lot about the importance of mathematical vocabulary, and I've written another article on this week, actually. So if you're interested in that, go and find my Substack article on this, which I'll link in the show notes. But it just made me reflect that we perhaps need to be careful that although using correct mathematical vocabulary is very much the aim and the end point, and I think it's got so many benefits in terms of being able to allow children to talk about their thinking and be very precise and reason and be fluent with their talk and their oracy and their written work and their answers and things as well as being able to teach more effectively as well. If we can use the correct language, everything becomes clearer. It did make me reflect, though, that we still need to value these imprecise and ambiguous attempts at mathematical thinking as well, and not just jump in immediately to try and correct them, because that can derail children's thought processes and things as well. So I'm not shifting my opinion on the importance of correct and precise vocabulary, but I do think that we just alongside that need to ensure that, where children aren't using the correct vocabulary, is the meaning still there? Are they still, articulating their thinking and their reasoning in their own language? Because that's really important from, a teaching point of view to understand where that child is in terms of our formative assessment, because it may just be the vocabulary that's missing, but actually the thinking and the reasoning is completely there. So yeah, it was a note to myself, really, not to get hung up entirely on, assessing a child's attainment based upon purely whether they could articulate it with the correct vocabulary or not, I suppose, and making sure that we're still valuing that mathematical thinking that may include these porridge words, if you like. Thank you, Edward de Bono, for that.
That's interesting, John. I think you're right. I think I'm the same. I'm a lover, well, as you know, from my etymology of maths language. But I do think if you're talking about something you don't necessarily know a lot about, or thinking about me in life now, you do often maybe use language that isn't the right language, but it doesn't mean you haven't understood it. You just haven't understood how to explain it. That's why we use analogies, isn't it? Think about, I'm a
Yep,
big Star Trek fan, and there's constant analogies there to try to help you on board with the concept.
exactly.
So yeah, definitely something to think about.
Yeah. So again, it's another one of those things where we need to appreciate the messy stuff in the middle. Here's the end point where we want to get to, with children being able to reason articulately with correct, precise vocabulary about their maths and their understanding of that. Here's the start point where we don't know anything. In the middle, there's going to be, a point where they do actually understand but can't articulate it, or maybe they have the right language but they don't understand it. And it's important, I think, probably to differentiate between those two, and to, as I say, still value the mathematical thinking that happens, even if it doesn't yet have the correct mathematical language attached to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that brings us seamlessly, John, onto the part of the show where we dig into the key takeaways from this week's interviews. So things that people at home might want to try out in their own school or practice.
It absolutely does. And I was joined this week by Kirsten Fenton and Holly Drummond, who were just lovely and brilliant and very, very knowledgeable, and spoke with such passion about maths journaling. And as I mentioned in the episode, I'd met them at a conference in Cardiff, even though they're based, I think, in Kirsten's case, in Inverness, actually. So quite a journey down to Cardiff for her to get there to speak at the conference. And it was just, it was great to hear them talk there. And I thought we need to get them onto the podcast so that we can discuss this in a bit more detail. And they're going to return as well to talk to us a bit more about lesson planning and journaling within that. So what stood out to you, Becky? What were your key takeaways from that episode?
Well, I think very similar to what we were just saying, John, about the mess in the middle almost. Maths is a journey, and they were talking about journaling as a way of showing that journey. Incidentally, they come from the same root word. Of course, I couldn't resist but have a look. Come through Latin, the French. A journal originally means a day's events, although you might not describe it as that. And a journey, a day's travel.
Yeah. And my limited
Yeah.
French vocabulary here. I did
Yes.
German at GCSE, so yeah. But yeah, bonjour, good day,
Good
jour,
day.
day. Got you. Makes sense.
Yes. So, and I think the importance of seeing that whole journey, I think listening to them talking about that was really made me think how important it was to see that bit in the middle. We often go into book looks or monitoring, and it can be very easy to see some beautiful books and think, great. And I think people do still do that. You know, oh, look at this person's books, they're amazing. But actually, maths isn't always like that. There is a place for it, absolutely. I know how important it is to, in certain situations to have things lined up and things, of course, but the journey towards that, in a similar way to vocabulary, might look quite messy. And I think it does in real life, actually. And being able to have that, I mean, I've used journals and whiteboard books and whiteboards before, but I think what they were saying about having it all in one place is really important, because it shows that journey from here's where we started, here's how we got there. And then at the end, you might have a beautiful piece of work, but it won't necessarily always look like that. And I think of course, it's important to have senior leaders on board when you're having that approach, but it really is important to see the whole journey.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with you. The other thing I think that stood out for me was their focus on this being a integral part of their lesson design rather than an additional thing to do. Because I think there's a couple of important points around that. One, trying to find time to do journaling on top of everything else that you're doing is just, yeah, we know there are limited. Well, there's no free time in a school day at all
No.
these days. And so, if it becomes another task to do, then I think that's really hard. But from a pedagogical point of view, the journaling isn't an additional aspect of the lesson. It's actually, part of how learning is taking place. So those opportunities, and I think maybe what we didn't quite get into yet, but I think we will do, are the different reasons that you might do journaling. So one of them that they did talk about was so that children could look back on that, if there's a particular key piece of knowledge or key sentence stem or something that we want children to remember, then they might get those to write those down or articulate those in their books in one way or another. But I think that there's also opportunities for journaling when we're doing problem solving and things as well, where as you're trying to reason and figure out things, whether that's through whenever I'm trying to solve a problem, I tend to draw something out because it just helps me to visualize it.
Yeah.
And we've talked about spatial reasoning and things like that recently. And I think that's just a key part of it. So it doesn't really matter what it is, whether it's a geometry problem or not. There's normally something for me to draw to try and figure it out. And obviously, we know the importance of pictorial representations and things like that. I would argue that all of those things are actually a form of journaling as well. It doesn't have to be written sentences, and I know Kirsten and Holly made that point as well in the interview. But in terms of the purpose of it for problem solving, for articulating reasoning, for drawing out mathematical thinking, for recording the important words and phrases that have come out from the purposeful talk that's hopefully happened also as part of the lesson. I think journaling is wonderful for all of those things.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was great to hear about its use as sort of an AFL, and maybe not a standard one, but I think probably more powerful than maybe just a test of questions at the beginning, because you're probably opening things up that you didn't even know were there by making it much more open. But also jottings. Jottings are so important, aren't they? As a teacher of year 6 for many years, the amount of times that we've said, yes, write that, draw that, fill all this available space, as long as the answer is in the box. And I think sometimes children are a little bit reticent to do that because they don't think that's part of it. But of course it is.
Maybe we don't allow them to do it enough.
Yeah. And I think when you look at a GCSE paper, the amount of jotting that has to happen for those big meaty questions is really important. So I think you're right. I think it's a mindset, isn't it, of actually this is okay because this is maths.
Yeah, because if you're told for years that you write out the calculation in the boxes, you make sure that there's one digit per square, and I'm not against that at all. I think it's really helpful for laying things out in terms of place value and those sorts of things, really important. But if as a child you're told for years that you've got to do it that way and keep everything nice and neat and your book is squares for a reason, because we're working with digits rather than words here, particularly. Our English books have got lines in them because that's where we write words. Then when it comes to suddenly having a SATs paper and being told, oh, no, you can just write wherever you like, you can do whatever you want in there, whatever helps you, they're not going to just automatically be able to do that. That we need to teach them the skills that they actually need, I think. And I think journaling is a really good way of doing that. And that's why I think it was also interesting. I never used to have a separate maths journal. It was all in the one book. So whether we were, and that book did have squares in it, because, as I say, I think that's really important. But it was okay to write words as well, and it wasn't one letter per square when it came to writing words in our maths books. But I just think it's really important that it's seen as part of normal practice and just what we do in a maths lesson. And I think Kirsten and Holly made that point really well as well. I did think with the brain dump part that's going to take some training. That's not just something that you can just do, is it? Because I can definitely picture a few children, if I said to, right, tell me what you know about addition, which was the subject that we used in the interview, some children would not show me anything at all, even though they might have quite a lot of prior knowledge.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked about, would you give any prompts or anything like that at that point, because I think I personally might be tempted to. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but for some children they might need some prompts or scaffolds to help them to retrieve that information and to be able to articulate it, certainly at the start, I think, if you're doing this for the first time.
Well, it's like starting an essay or a story, isn't it? If you don't know where you're going, sometimes it can be really hard to get started, but having a model of what it might look like, or being taught how to start, I think you're right. I think that's important.
Yeah. So those anchor charts that they mentioned are really powerful, and they're great to see up in classrooms. I'm always happy when I see an anchor chart up in the classroom on a working wall and things, because it gives me an idea that we've actually explored this concept a little bit, and that's great. And that can be a nice way to model how to do those brain dumps to start with.
Yeah. I think one of the other things, just briefly worth mentioning, is at the very beginning of your interview, Holly was talking about children identifying as mathematicians or not at quite an early age. And I thought that was a really interesting way of putting it. I think I probably do identify as a mathematician. But I think if you're around very, very small children, they don't generally go around telling you what they're not good at, do they? They tend to tell you what they are good at. I'm good at jumping in puddles, or I'm good at, and I think they learn that, which is really sad. And they probably learn it for adults because we're very self-deprecating about what we can't do. But I think it's, again, another thing that we could do to try to improve that mindset towards maths.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And anything that we can do that helps with that and has some impact on alleviating potential maths anxiety or building confidence is definitely worth exploring. So we would love to hear how people are using maths journaling in their schools. If it's something that you've tried before, maybe have implemented really effectively, or perhaps you've found that it's not worked for you for whatever reason. Either way, we would love to hear from you and hear what you're doing now about it. So please do get in touch, primarymathspodcast@twinkle.co.uk, and we will share some of your views on that in the next Aftermaths episode. But I think, Becky, that just about wraps it up for this episode. So thank you for listening, everybody. Should we do it again next week, Becky?
Yeah, why not? If you've enjoyed today's show, please do share it with a colleague. And don't forget, if you give us a quick rating or a review, it helps other people to find the podcast too.
Absolutely. I'll be back next Tuesday on the Primary Maths Podcast with another interview to help you shape your classroom practice.
And I'll be back again with Jon next Friday for another Aftermaths episode. Please do keep sending in your thoughts and questions for that edition.
Fantastic. And enjoy Traitors in the meantime. Becky, you need to catch up. I can't guarantee there'll be no spoilers ever. But in the meantime, have a great week and we will see you next time.